Welcome to Message Meg, everyone. We all have a master code, just like a computer program. Our unique DNA code tells every cell what to do. Now, in our blood is a protein that carries oxygen from our lungs to every cell in our bodies. But if that genetic code tells your red blood cells not to be round, but to be shaped like a crescent moon or a sickle, then that crucial oxygen transfer system doesn't work. Sickle cell disease has been a cause of great pain, sickness, and it's an early killer. There has been no cure, but now there is hope. But before we introduce you to one of the first people trying the new treatment and a possible cure, you need to hear from the heart of Juanita Joseph, a New Orleans mother of 4 girls, 2 she lost to sickle cell disease.
It's devastating, it's painful, and it's deadly.
Juanita Joseph is the mother of 4 daughters. 2 of them are no longer with us.
It just slapped me across my face that I would lose 2 children to this disease.
Both were born in the 1960s. Both had sickle cell disease. Angela Dyer was in her early 50s. Bernadette Dyer was only in her early 20s.
I went to charity so much I thought I lived there, because on the 9th floor, on one end was for the big children, on the other end was for the babies. And if I brought one child, by the time I got home, it was time to come back and bring another one, bring my baby.
She remembers the time when Angela was nearing the end.
I had to treat my baby like a baby, because I had to go to Ashna 6 o'clock every morning and bathe her. I had to show her how to walk. She was in Ashna rehab. It wasn't no joke. My baby had the worst bout of the sickle cell.
She passed away just hours before Juanita was taken to the OR for needed heart surgery. Now, as research has moved science and treatments forward for those who inherit sickle cell anemia today, and with the new knowledge comes an abundance of hope.
My babies went through so much, and it's terrifying to have to talk about it all these years later, and to know that there are methods to cure that was not available to me. That's devastating to know, but it's also a blessing, because I know other kids who have sickle cell, their parents are glad.
Joining me now is a young man with sickle cell disease, Daniel Cressy. He's only 22 and is about to be one of the first to try a new gene therapy treatment that could cure him of his sickle cell disease. And welcome, glad you're with us. But I first want to talk about you. So you are 22, you're already driving trucks, which we desperately need 18-wheel drivers to get us our products, but you have a dream of being a pilot. Tell me about that, Daniel.
Yeah, so my dream of being a pilot started not typically how another might. It started when I was 19 years old, and I was, I was in school, but what I was in school for did not intrigue me. And I realized that something that I wanted to do in my life would be to travel. And I wanted to travel, and I realized that, I had my CDL already at 19. So after doing that, I realized that I want to do something further, because I thought that if I can drive an 18-wheeler, I can do anything. That's how it felt at the time. And so I started asking around. My mom knew a pilot, and then I asked him, how can I get my pilot's license? And from there, he told me what to do, and I fell in love.
Do you like flying? Have you ever been in a simulator and tried that?
I've flown a lot at the Gulf Coast Aviation in the Lakefront Airport. And
you have sat at the controls and
I've flown 53 hours.
Wow.
And it's a long story and an unfortunate story, which is why I'm here right now. But because of my disease, sickle cell, I had to halt my training. And this was the last time I flew a plane was in 2023, so about 2 years ago.
And you had to halt it because there are rules or laws that say if something happens to you and you're at the controls, that you're not allowed to have a license by yourself?
Well, so for 18-wheelers, it's a DOT medical. And for planes, it's an airman's medical certificate. So when I went to apply for a first class medical, I was deferred at first. They asked for more information, and then after that deferment, they had gave me the runaround, and then essentially said, we cannot offer you any solutions. And then it wasn't until that I went further using the Honorable Senator Bill Cassidy. I used his office to make an inquiry to the FAA to see what the solution was. And so after that inquiry, they actually came back and gave me a possible solution, which was how I found out about gene therapy.
Okay, so you were so passionate about this, you were willing to go contact your senator, all that type of thing to find a solution. I love that. I love that about you. Let me ask you, how did that make you feel when you were told, here's your dream, but Daniel, I'm sorry, you just don't pass the medical test? What did that do just in your heart and soul?
What does that do to a young 20-year-old guy pursuing his career? You know, when all your friends are in college and whatnot, and they're progressing seemingly, and I get halted, what do? I am extremely sad at first, borderline depressed.
Yes.
And I feel that I did my research on the therapy, and it was still in the trial phase when they told me about it. I was sad.
It felt far away too, that you
felt
could
far.
this could ever be a reality. Well, let me ask you about having sickle cell disease. How old were you when you understood what it was and that you had this and that made you a little different?
I guess as soon as I started going to the hospital, which was a very young age, I'd say 2 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if I'm like fully conscious at that point, but you know, that's when I began going to the hospital very frequently.
Did you ever say, why me, or you know, I can't go do thus and so with my friends? Or did you just, I don't know, look for a path forward?
I didn't say why me. I actually did say why me, but I didn't say it until I began to pursue my career in aviation. And that is when I was like, out of all people in my family who could have had this disease, it's the guy who wants to be a pilot. And you know, at the time, it's sad, but then, you know, I realized that everything happens for a reason. So I realized that there's a bigger picture to this.
Oh, Daniel, okay. So much wisdom at such a young age. Okay, so tell me what it was like growing up from when you were a little boy, 2 years old, going to the hospital, and then going through high school. Did you have the pain? Did you have to miss, I don't know, your prom and different things because you were in the hospital? How did it affect your life?
So yeah, growing up, especially the younger ages, I was in a hospital almost every month. And you know, a hospital stay on average, I'd say 5 days, 5 nights. And it definitely played a part in me slowing down. However, I was very smart, so I was able to catch up pretty quickly. But you know, there are other things to it, such as not being able to play sports.
Well, that was my next question. They can bring your homework and you can catch up in your hospital room, but you can't go out and be with your friends. And come on, in your teens, that's all you want to do is be with your friends, right?
Yeah, and you know, growing up, it didn't faze me as much because I guess I learned to accept it at a young age, and I learned to adapt, and especially around the age of, I'd say 15, 16, I began to grow conscious of what might have triggered a crisis. And so I adapted, such as, you know, changing my diet. I think that's a very big thing.
Interesting. You'd have a flare-up when your diet, when what?
Such as eating a lot of sodium, consuming a lot of sodium.
Mm-hmm.
I would have a flare-up. I guess the blood pressure increases, and then, you know, my blood is sickle, so that was just
Was there pain? Was there
rapidly,
pain, Daniel? Did you have certain pain when, you know, a lot of patients describe, you know, a lot of pain at times when those cells aren't bringing the oxygen and moving smoothly?
Oh, of course.
Like where? Where? Just everywhere? You'd ache everywhere?
You know, growing up, the pain was mostly in my chest and abdomen.
Okay.
I don't know why, but nowadays it's in my joints. It's rarely in my chest or abdomen. It might be in my lower back, and that's the absolute worst place for a pain crisis to occur. Anybody would tell you.
Okay, so we're here today because you are going to be one of the first people to have tried this therapy, this treatment. So how did you meet Dr. Watkins?
Our first option was a bone marrow transplant, but we couldn't find a donor, unfortunately.
No donor, no relative or stranger matched you.
You know, no relatives, that's for sure. Strangers did match me. However, there's another part to it. That stranger also has to fall through with actually getting the procedure. And that was where we could not get any luck.
But maybe this is a sign that you were meant to go through this new gene therapy. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to be having this gene therapy. How do you feel about the fact that this could change everything for you?
How do I feel about? Well, I'm excited.
I guess so.
I'm very
Are you nervous?
excited. You know, well, I guess I might be a little spoiled because I do have contact with two guys who already, well, one of them got a bone marrow transplant, but the other guy, Kyle, that I mentioned, he went through the clinical trial with Bluebird, and so I get all the insights, all the pictures, all the details, all the behind the scenes.
Well, does he know? Have they checked his blood? Has it been time to see if it worked?
Oh, yeah.
It works for Kyle.
Yeah.
Okay, so you meet Kyle, he was in the clinical trial. You meet him through Reddit. You meet him online and social media. And y'all start this, let's look, this says Privileged Pilots. So you start a clothing company in the meantime.
Yeah,
My gosh, Daniel, what haven't you done? Okay, and tell me where this is sold, this Privileged Pilots.
Well, we can find this on our website at www.privilegedpilots.shop. And on Instagram, you can send us a message and we'll get something custom made for you. And essentially, Privileged Pilots is just it's a brand that embodies our story. Kyle, Ty, and myself. It's a story, our journey that we're sharing, and we just embodied it in our brand, Privileged Pilots. And there's a lot of stuff going on with Privileged Pilots.
I love it. And so Privileged Pilots, you have this shirt, do you have other apparel?
What
do you have?
Mostly casual, everyday wear, like T-shirts and shorts, and I also do custom-made items, which is typically embroidered and whatnot.
And I see the wings with a heart in it. That's clearly the wings because you want to fly, and the heart because...
Yeah, and even then you have the sickle around the edges of the heart.
I see the sickle.
Yeah.
Yeah, point that out. I see it. It's on top of the wings.
Right here.
Okay, I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. And
beautiful.
It's
beautiful.
just, the sickle cell with the hearts and the cells.
Now, let's welcome to our conversation Dr. Ben Watkins. He is the Chief of Tulane Pediatric Hematology and Oncology and the Director of the Stem Cell Transplant and Cellular Therapy Program at Manning Family Children's in New Orleans. And welcome to you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is very exciting. So let's start from the beginning. You were formerly in Atlanta and you did the clinical trials. And how many patients such as Daniel were in the clinical trial?
So there are two separate clinical trials. Each one of them treated about 30 to 40 patients. In Atlanta, we probably treated a half dozen to a dozen or so.
And what was the success rate?
We found a lot of success with this. The patients that came through there were very fortunate that after the procedure took place, they were able to live pain-free and go on about their lives as if they never had sickle cell.
All of them?
They all did very well.
Okay, so I want to understand, do all of the cells become normal in their hemoglobin, in their red blood cells become, or are some still sickle but just not enough to cause symptoms?
Yeah, so you may have some red blood cells that still sickle, but there's enough of the now normal or near normal hemoglobin that prevents a lot of the complications that come with sickle cell disease.
And eventually as you make more blood cells, because we all turn over our cells, will they all be made circular, or will some of them always for the rest of your life be made in the sickle?
Some of them may stay sickle as you go on, but there's enough of the now normal hemoglobin to protect you from those.
This is really exciting. Okay, so you come to New Orleans to Manning Family Children's, and you start the program up, and Daniel's going to be the first patient?
Yeah, these are two brand new procedures. They've only been approved since December of 2023. There's only been a couple of hundred that have ever been performed in the whole world. And so we became a treatment center in March of last year. And so there's a lot of work behind the scenes to get these approved. These are very expensive therapies. So part of it is making sure we have approval that he has a disease that's treatable with this, and also making sure he's healthy enough to undergo the procedure.
So what are the inclusion criteria? What did he have to have, and what do other patients who may be listening have to make sure that this procedure could potentially work? Because they don't want to use it on someone where they know they're not a candidate.
Correct.
Okay.
These type of therapies are only really going to be used in the most severe patients. So that's probably the 5% or less that have sickle cell disease. And so they need to have complications that put them in the severe category. So those are recurrent events. It could be pain. It could be problems with their lungs, like pneumonias that happen, or other events that occur that puts them into a severe category.
Because other people, the ratio of round cells to sickle cells isn't as great maybe as Daniel's? Is that what you're looking for?
In part, but what we know is it's really complex. There are some patients that, for whatever reason, have more complications with their sickle cell disease. They have more pain than a sibling that has the exact same disease as them. Some just have a very much more difficult to treat sickle cell than others.
Okay, so what's going to happen to Daniel? Starting with the first thing, he gets some sort of, he has cells taken from his blood.
Yeah, so the first step is we have to prepare him to go through this procedure. So he's in that phase right now to decrease the amount of sickled cells in his blood. It's giving him blood transfusions. And then
Blood transfusions from just someone with the same blood type.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
That won't
You've been
sickle.
getting that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then next month, towards the end of the month, what we're going to do is actually collect his stem cells. What that involves is we use a machine similar to what you use to donate platelets, and we give him a drug to make the stem cells come out of his bone marrow where they naturally live, and then we collect them with this machine and then give him back everything else that's not stem cells.
From his blood, not from his hip bones or anything. Not from the blood.
Correct. This can all
Okay.
be done through the blood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then that's mailed off to a company.
Correct. So that's sent off to them, and then they're going to perform the gene therapy on his stem cells.
And that's the Bluebird Biotech company?
So there's two different companies
Okay.
that do this. There's Bluebird Bio, and then there's Vertex.
Okay.
There's two different approaches. They're both gene therapies, but they use two different mechanisms. Casgevy, which is the one that Daniel's going forward with, is actually something called CRISPR, which is editing a gene. So it's actually going in and changing the gene.
Wow.
What the other one in, the Bluebird Bio, which is called Lyfgenia, is actually inserting a new gene. So it's gene addition versus gene editing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So then that's put back in him. So now his DNA code that we were talking about earlier is telling his body to make a correct copy of hemoglobin, of the red blood cells.
Correct. When we get that product back from the company, what we need him to do is undergo, basically it's like a stem cell transplant. We have to give him chemotherapy to eliminate his stem cells so that they make room for these incoming stem
Right,
cells.
kill the bad ones so
Yeah.
that you can put the good ones in, and the good ones are the ones that multiply,
Yeah.
not the bad ones. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
And then this is all done in the hospital, and then within a couple of weeks we start to see that he's making normal red blood cells now. And so within a couple of months there should be basically a hemoglobin that's in the normal range.
And when he goes through the chemotherapy, does he have to be careful with, getting around anyone who's sick? Does he have to stay in a bubble environment, so to speak, in the hospital?
Yeah, absolutely. We have special rooms that are the same for our bone marrow transplant patients that limit the infections. We limit the number of people that are in the room to try to protect him from those potential infections.
How long? How long, doctor, is he in there?
So he's in the hospital for about 3 to 4 weeks or so.
But that's a piece of cake, because you've been in the hospital so many times, right?
Yeah,
How do you
that's
feel
nothing.
about all this that he's telling you? Is it, well, it's a little scary, or is it, oh my gosh, this is a means to a new future? Which way do you look at it?
Definitely the latter.
Okay.
The benefits definitely outweigh the temporary,
Inconvenience.
that you might have to go through. I just see the bigger picture, of me, even outside of my career, just like my everyday life, just, I always wanted to run track. And I think that'll be something that I can do after this treatment. And, so I know that there's gonna be temporary suffering, but
Yeah.
I've definitely endured a lot more than that in the past. So
Run track, is it because his oxygen doesn't work as well to get to the muscles when he's trying to exert in a sprint? So
Yeah.
this would make a difference for him.
Yeah, and that's possible. And also, if he gets dehydrated, he's more likely to sickle. So it's more likely to throw him into one of these crises, these pain crises, if he gets dehydrated, if he was running for long periods of time. That's not going to happen with gene therapy.
That's what he was talking about with diet, that the higher sodium in the diet, the more likely more sickle cells are produced. Is that right?
Yeah, hydration is really important in patients with sickle cell to help limit some of that sickling from occurring.
Okay, so in the clinical trials, were a lot of people Daniel's age, or were they all different ages? Can someone 50 have this treatment?
Yeah, so the clinical trials went down to the age of 12. That was the youngest that they went down to, and then they did it until young adulthood. And what's really important with these therapies is that the earlier you do it is really better, before you develop a lot of those complications, because this can't reverse complications that happen. If you had a stroke, it's not going to change that. So we really want to get to patients early to prevent those complications from occurring.
Early adulthood is what age these days?
Well, as I
Because
get
middle age for me keeps getting older and older.
same for me. So up to the age of 30 is kind of where we consider probably the 12 to 30 is kind of the best time to go forward with.
So
these.
doctor, if people listening want to come, or a parent is listening and wants his or her child to come through this, what should they do? Call Manning Family Children's, do what?
Yeah, so our goal here is we want to share the information. Our job is to make sure that every patient out there is informed as they want to be. So any patient that wants to come in and talk about gene therapy, even if they're not eligible for it, even if they don't want to proceed with it, we're there to give information. We're not there to try to convince anybody to do anything. These are difficult decisions that have to be made about whether you want to proceed. So,
Is insurance a bigger fight, or is insurance getting on board with this?
it's too soon to say,
Okay.
because we're just getting our first couple of patients through the process. It's a battle. These are expensive therapies, and we need to be
Yes.
mindful of who we're choosing to go through this process as well. Again, this isn't for everybody, and so it's a battle, though.
Is the stem cell treatment still being done? I remember doing stories 15 years ago on people who were cured with stem cell. Is that still being used?
Absolutely. Every year we're curing patients with sickle cell disease with a stem cell transplant at Manning Family Children's.
But you think this is maybe better or better outcomes?
I think it's different for each patient. So I think it's really about your matching for a stem cell transplant. So if you have a perfectly matched sibling, the success rates are phenomenal. They're really good. There's still side effects, obviously, and it's a long process, but it's really a safe procedure nowadays. And so if you have a perfectly matched sibling, then transplant's probably a better option. But if you're in an unfortunate case like with Daniel, where he didn't have donor options, then gene therapy is likely more attractive, because the side effects of a mismatched transplant are higher.
Yeah. So with this, we're not talking about a similar blood type. We are talking about someone with very similar DNA, like
Yes.
like a sibling.
Correct,
Yeah, okay.
correct. And there's about a 20 to 25% chance of a sibling being perfectly matched to you. So it's
Okay.
not a given by any
All
means.
right. Well, this is exciting.
Yeah.
And if he goes through this and is cured, he can go he wants to be a pilot, a doctor.
I know. I think it's been a long year going through this process, and a lot of it has nothing to do with medicine. And so it's been a real challenge and a lot of work. But he makes it all worth it. Like hearing his story and helping him to achieve his dream is something that we can't.
I see
replace.
you one day flying planes
Yeah.
for organ transplants.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question. Now let's go to the Message Meg inbox. And this one comes from Miss Juanita, who you heard from earlier. She wants to know, should all people at risk of carrying the genetic trait or passing it on to children, should they get a genetic test before having children? Okay, doctor, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's an important thing to consider, because I think knowledge is power, and understanding it may not change the outcome of having children and them being affected by sickle cell disease, but having that information up front can be powerful.
Can help. So what we're talking about is each parents have this code in their genes, but they don't have two copies, which makes them have the actual disease.
Correct.
And so earlier you talked about Daniel being among the 5%, but what about the other 95% of people with sickle cell disease who wouldn't be candidates for this at this time?
Yeah, so we're hoping that the spotlight that's now being shown on gene therapy is going to spread to that 95%, because sickle cell disease is a disease that's been overlooked for centuries. It's been had a stigma placed on it. It's been challenges for patients just to get standard of care treatment. And so what we hope is bringing this light to them will also allow them to get to those physicians that can treat them appropriately and get them the screening that they need to prevent some of these complications.
Like what? Like what complications would, knowing you're screened, you have this, what complications would you prevent from hurting you?
Yeah. One of the things with sickle cell disease is it basically affects every organ of your body. And so our patients that have sickle cell disease need intensive screening to prevent some complications. So that includes screening for potential for stroke. That's an ultrasound called the TCD that's done in young patients to identify patients that are at risk for stroke. You can prevent devastating strokes if you can get to them early enough. But you have to get to those tests, and there's patients in the state that aren't getting to it.
Did you get to things like that, Daniel? Were you regularly screened, or no? Were you one of the ones that the doctor's talking about?
I mean, I went to the doctor frequently, so I'm sure they screened me, and I do remember getting ultrasounds frequently, especially growing up. So that might be what he is referring to.
Because you have you're going to clot more frequently, and that's what could cause a stroke or a heart attack?
Correct. And I think, Daniel's lucky. Daniel's an incredible young man who's
clearly
great advocate.
Clearly we're in the presence of greatness.
So he's a great advocate, and so I think there are a lot of patients that are rural that don't live next to a medical center where they have access to a hematologist.
Okay.
And so I don't think everybody's as lucky. And so it's just, there are other complications like problems with your eye, problems with your heart, problems with your lungs, that if you can detect it early, you can prevent a lot of complications.
So shining a light on the disease and these new developments also lets people know, hey, don't give up the standard of care of going for your regular appointments just because you're not having this particular treatment.
Absolutely. We can't just focus on the 5%. We got to make sure that every patient with sickle cell disease is taken care of. And Daniel's doing a great job spreading the word.
Daniel, I expect big things. Big. I'm not just about your health, but I mean, come on, you're 22 and you have your own clothing line, but it's a clothing line to help people. You're going to conventions, you're 18-wheel drivers. Boy, we learned that during the pandemic. We need, that is an essential, an essential worker, and one day you'll be flying. I know you will.
Yeah, I'll be flying the G7.
G7, okay, yeah. That's wonderful. Any final thoughts from you, Daniel?
Not exactly. I just appreciate you having me on here, and Dr. Watkins has been great with helping me get this word out here, and I definitely one of my main missions with this brand, I want to conclude it with this, is to change the way that people perceive individuals with sickle cell, because it wasn't until I began to progress in my career in which I learned that there's actually a deep misunderstanding about patients with sickle cell, and I just wanted to change the way that people view us.
Did people treat you like you weren't capable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you want to show them that you are.
Yeah. I want to show them that I'm not defined by my disease. I do not let my disease define me. So.
Wisdom. Wow, you're 22. What was I doing at 22? Yeah. All right. Good luck to you. We're going to follow your case, by the way, and see how you do.
Thank you.
Now a final thought. Gene editing is becoming more precise and accessible. Diseases like sickle cell, anemia, cystic fibrosis, and Huntington's disease could one day be cured. Gene editing can be used for immunotherapy to modify a patient's immune cells to target and destroy cancer cells. In the future, germline gene editing, that's when the egg or sperm cells are edited, the DNA, could prevent the transmission of genetic diseases to future generations. And maybe one day conditions like Down syndrome. But it takes funding and it takes years of research. Now, send your questions and show ideas to message-meg@gmail.com and let me know if you want to be part of our conversation. I'm Meg Farris. Thank you for joining us.